video, we're going to be replacing the radiator in my E39 540i. So if you've seen in the other 3 videos in this series, I replaced the thermostat, I added an electric fan, and I also replaced the coolant expansion tank. Today we're going to be addressing the biggest part of a cooling system, which is the radiator and the associated hoses. I've got everything torn down to the point where we're doing the install for the electric fan. So if you want to see how to get rid of all of your airbox equipment and the fan, especially if you have the clutch fan, it's going to be a little bit more difficult. You can check out my other videos on the cooling overhaul. Today we're just going to be doing the radiator, and everything will be up to date and we'll have a nice reliable daily driver. Here's our replacement radiator. Like pretty much everything else for this car, got it from ECS Tuning. It is a Behr unit, so it's a factory equivalent replacement. Got the BMW upcharge. It's always a good idea to take a look at the part while it's out of the car. You can see the obvious, like we have the 2 different large hoses. We have the smaller hose that comes across the top to the expansion tank. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different clips across the bottom of the radiator we're going to deal with. Some more information we can glean from the radiator is this tab right here on the side is what the radiator rests on. So right now it's upside down, but what you'll do is you'll lift the radiator up and then slide it towards the engine, and that's what's going to allow this little tab to get out of the way, and you can pull the radiator out. You also have your drain plug here at the top, so all you have to do is just untwist that, and that'll allow you to drain the radiator and make as little mess as possible. But if you flip it around to the front side of the radiator, there's no clips, no hardware, nothing else holding it in place. So it should be pretty simple to slide it out. On my 350Z, I had some connectors up here, which is what held up the AC condenser. Big pain in the butt to try and get that out of the way. The amazing thing about this radiator is how thick it is from the factory. My 350Z's radiator was half as thick as this. This is how thick the aftermarket unit is. So definitely a lot of cooling demands for this car. So let's get it installed. On either side of the radiator you have these little tabs, which you'll unscrew with an 8mm socket, and these just lift straight up. There's one on each side. If you have an earlier E39, you can have a band clamp right here. But if you have the later models, you have this special little coupler where you're going to pop this retaining clip up, and then you're going to be able to wiggle this off. You have the same thing on the passenger side of a car, and you also have your coolant temperature sensor right there. So pop out those 2 retaining clips and you can remove your hoses. We're now under the driver's side of the car, and you can see the automatic transmission cooler here. It's a liquid-to-liquid cooler, so the transmission fluid comes in those hoses there and goes back to the transmission. Well, this hose carries coolant over to the cooler and transfers heat from the transmission into the coolant, so the radiator can take care of that heat. So that little drain plug that's on the other radiator is for this fitting right here, and that's how I'm going to drain all the coolant out. To get to the underside of the car, you have to remove this splash guard. It's got 6 different little screws on it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then back here, this little arm, you can disconnect it from there, or you can disconnect it from the car. Like the access panel for the oil drain, it's not a typical screw. It's got a very coarse thread on it, so you really only have to do 1 full rotation to release it. It's a really wonderful design, actually. We've got all our fluid draining out into our catch bucket down here. All you have to do is rotate that fitting about 90 degrees counterclockwise, and then pull it straight down. You might have to pry a little bit, but definitely do not break it. And all your coolant should drain out. I'm not trying to do a complete coolant flush, I'm just trying to get coolant out of the radiator. We already have our top hose disconnected. You can see how this metal clamp slides up and allows you to pull this out off of this special fitting here. We'll do the same thing on the passenger side. We also have to remove this coolant sensor here. You're just going to squeeze this metal clamp and pull it out. Super easy. And we'll detach this one, and we'll be ready to pull the radiator out. So I was able to fish the radiator out. As you can see, my radiator has had quite a hard life. It just looks atrocious compared to the new one, especially whatever accident damage happened to the bottom here. It looks like the whole bottom got caught on the curb, almost like they pulled in and hit the side of a sidewalk or something like that. But you can see just how much it's messed up. I mean, it's got a big kink back here. All of this is torn up. The fact that it's not leaking is just astounding to me. You have to remove these little rubber stoppers here. That's what it rests on. There's one on either side. Just slides right off. And then you also need from the top of it, which will be sitting up here in this little channel, you're going to need the 2 rubber pieces. Mine came out with the retaining brackets, but you might have to pry them out. And you just slip them right in here on the new radiator. Install our new rubber holder. And we can maneuver it back in the car. So with our new radiator in, we've got to connect the automatic transmission cooler down at the bottom. We have our main radiator hoses on both the driver and passenger side. We have to reconnect that coolant temperature sensor, drop our fan back in, our expansion tank, and then once again we'll have to refill and bleed the system. Alright, so I've got the car running now. It's a little high right now, but that'll go down as time goes by. I'm seeing bubbles start to come out. I'm keeping an eye on the temperatures with a OBD2 reader. The car's only at about 115 degrees. So I'm just going to keep checking it, keep an eye on it. Just periodically squeezing the hoses. You can see it kind of helps run some water through. I want to try and squeeze all those bubbles out. I don't know if you can tell, my driveway has a slight downward angle to it. That should help with the coolant. And just a little bit, I'm going to back it down so just the tail is in the street. That'll give it an even more angle, help get some more bubbles out of the coolant system. But she's still doing good. We're getting close to where a thermostat should open. I've got the heater turned all the way up just to get everything out. Now the front of the car is much higher than the back of the car. It's got a good maybe 6 or 7 inches of tilt to it. And that should help get all that air to the front of the coolant system. And that completes part 4 of a BMW cooling overhaul. Part 1, we replaced the expansion tank. Part 2, the thermostat. Part 3, the electric fan. And now we have a new radiator. The car has been running great. I haven't had a single issue with cooling. The thing that I'm most excited about is the electric fan. It has done really well. The next couple parts, eventually we'll get to the water pump. We're going to replace the auxiliary fan in front of the AC condenser. And we're going to replace the pipe that goes under the V8 intake manifold right there. So go back and check out parts 1 through 3. Hit that subscribe button and I will see you guys next week.